Trigger warning, spoiler alert, for the love of God, don't touch that dial. You are experiencing the Tom Kelly Show, a new tech, old tech version of the show, something that started with your comments and hopefully will end with me salvaging my career. How do we save FM radio? Now, a lot of you guys know me from the more popular parts of my job. I have performed on Good Morning America. I have been was the warm-up comedian at The View, America's Got Talent, the dating game. No, the Newlywed Game. Did a lot of work with the Impractical Jokers. A lot of you guys follow me because you've seen me adjacent to TV work. I get my health insurance from radio. I ghostwrite for morning radio shows. My writing partner, Tim Crompier, and I work for the Dr. Dave services under the Premier Company at iHeartRadio. Lots of boom, sub-companies. Anyway, however it all works, I write ideas every night that help local radio hosts become more of themselves, you hope. Or you hope that you're giving them ideas that help them be funny. You hope that you're giving them ideas that help them have their finger on the zeitgeist, whatever the right word is. And and that's FM radio, man. So that's what qualifies me to talk about this. I have a podcast with my nice handful of listeners. That's kind of adorable. And you wonder, man, I've had this conversation a few times over the week. Is FM radio going the way of the dinosaur? Is FM radio going the way of the dodo bird, as my mom likes to say? Apparently that's a bird that went extinct at some point, the dodo bird. And I do think if you look at the stock prices for iHeartRadio's biggest competitor, Audacy, and if you look at even, iHeartRadio stock price and a lot of other radio companies' stock prices, and if you see how the business is treating itself, I don't think it's going to collapse, but I do think it's on the brink of a massive transformation. First, you're listening to me, I'm on a podcast. Or you're watching this on YouTube. Who the hell is listening to the radio? I mean, I got my new Jeep about a year and a half ago, and I paid for Sirius. I paid for satellite. I love to plug my little iPhone into the thing, and I have jokingly called the Jeep my $50,000 earbuds. I mean, you talk about radio. There's a lot of things sort of that have been killing radio for years. It's funny. When I was in college 20 years ago, they were screaming, "Is syndication the death of radio?" And what syndication is when you take, let's say, a show in New York and then you air it in lots of other cities. Then there's the other theory of is big corporate ownership destroying radio. That's an interesting thing. I think that does disrupt media in the old days, but now you have the internet, so why not have a big Goliath own half the stations in the country? Because quite frankly, we're getting instead of us getting all our information from NBC, CBS, Disney, ABC, whatever, now we're getting our information from Google, big monsters, So anyway, I love morning radio. I think it does have an influence on the stuff I have here. Ooh, I forgot. There's your little wacky horn. Morning show. Those are real. That's a real horn, by the way, for those of you listening. And that is a real bell in the distance. And then I have a sound effect board here I could play with later. But the moral of the story is, I think radio is worth saving. It's evolving. I think, the Z100 Morning Zoo, which is now hosted by Elvis Duran and is called The Elvis Duran Show, that was a big influence on my comedy. That was a big influence on, it was Letterman and probably, FM Zoo radio. Not Howard Stern. Howard Stern was always a little bit too mean for me. But I used to take a tape. I used to take an audio cassette recorder, and I would record the Z100 morning show on a tape at my house. And then I would play the tape the next day and listen to it on the bus because the little FM receiver would be staticky on my little school bus. So I describe working in radio as being employed by the world's best rotary phone company. You wonder, is it a technology that's about to go out of business? But it's still a technology that somebody needs somewhere. It may not be as big as it used to be, but somebody needs it. And whenever you see a business about to explode or implode, I think that's where creativity happens. And that's where I kind of get into some of the things you guys are saying. Like, remember, AM radio. People have been saying AM is dead for literally, I'm 44, so they've been saying AM radio is dead for 35 to 45 years, maybe longer. And then AM radio used to be where you listen to all your music. That the music moved to FM, and AM kind of evolved into this world of talk, sports talk, news stations, and frankly, a lot of creepy political talk that is owned by other companies, and eventually it goes up to Russia people. So watch out for who you're listening to, even on the radio, especially if you're not in New York. So I asked Tom Kelly Show fans on Facebook, what do you love about old-fashioned radio over the air? Do you have ideas on how to save radio? And here's a list of some of your ideas and my own. From Dan Cook, a nuclear holocaust would go a long way. Holy crap, Dan Cook. I wanted to share the worst suggestion first. It's actually a correct answer. Radio transmissions work in disasters. You have your battery-powered FM receiver, AM receiver, and then you get the government instructions. That's where your Federal Communications Commission comes in, and it's like, nuclear disaster, or frankly, the hurricane is coming. There's the Red Cross is here, and here. Interestingly enough, and thank God, in our little bubble of being in America, geographically isolated from all the drama in Europe and around the world, with all of that, we haven't needed it as much, thank God. We haven't had the big, massive, the world is coming to an end prediction happen, but it's not too late. But anyway, phone technology is getting better. And listen, the other one I used to say and complain about was copper wire phones. Copper wire phones were the only reliable thing working on Long Island during Hurricane Sandy. And yet the phone company Verizon has pulled all the copper and replaced it with the VoIP phones. So for as much as I love your idea, Dan Cook, that's not the solution. Listen, getting into other ways to save radio from our old friend, Kristen Barbetta. Kudos to you, Kristen Barbetta. Waking up to music and a friend is better than listening to an alarm. There you go. Morning radio right there. Instead you hear, but how do you make sure you're not waking up to a commercial for Dunkin' Donuts? That kind of is jarring for me, but whatever. But then again, I fall asleep watching Law and Order. Why can't you wake up to a commercial for a local car dealership? Interactive and live. And I find that hard with podcasting. I asked this question 48 hours ago, and it's not going to air for another 4 days after. So I think all these names that I'm dropping during my podcast, I don't think anybody actually will give a crap. But Cole Cather loves how live shows interact with listeners and hosts. And for some reason, interacting on Instagram just isn't the same magic for me. Are the comments real? Are the comments fake? And have you ever seen a person like me let a random person in live? I did it once or twice and it was fun. I think that's how we met Opera Mom. But overall, if you watch TikTok and, I'll watch, I'll stumble into a pretty girl's TikTok live. She'll let someone in and it's like creepy old guy going, it's kind of, so anyway, Radio seems to have mastered that. They got the call screener, they got this, they got that, blah, blah, blah. There you go. Radio, what makes radio amazing? It is local. And that's something I have to think about even with this podcast. Several commenters, frankly, all in their 40s, wrote that they like how local radio is local. I mean, and I'll argue that during the nationalization of media, you know, I mean, even TV stations aren't as local as they used to be. You know, you'll have, like up in Albany, my friend Ryan Peterson, he's on the local news on 2 different TV channels. Is that really a diversification of information, even though Ryan Peterson is dreamy and you should watch him? But the other guys, I don't know. You know, in the old days, radio personalities did the local stuff. You know, like, and now the local stuff is being picked up by the internet monsters, like, and not even monsters, but you don't know who they are. Like, I am obsessed with Long Island Wise Guy. And in fact, you guys, whenever I do something about Massapequa or Long Island, I ask you to send it to Long Island Wise Guy. He took one of my clips, a clip that I actually have made on the podcast, or I will make a joke I will make on the podcast this coming Sunday. I took one clip, made it a 15-second thought about my hometown, Massapequa, and the Long Island Wise Guy shared it to 15,000 Instagram people. Now, I have 15,000 Instagram followers too, but for some reason, Long Island Wise Guy, because he's all Long Island all the time, he went viral. Mine, I think he literally has 2,600 likes on my clip, and I have 26. I mean, by a factor of 1,000, you know? So all local, all the time. Be small, keep it all, Lori Smith Kelly. I like this comment, and I'll read her exact words. I love our small town radio stations. That's my Casey Kasem, by the way. I love our all small. Okay, now I just got all like breathy stripper. I love our small town radio stations. They do lost and found pets, traffic and accident updates, local, school, and political news, fishing and water temperature reports for Lake Michigan, and so much more. You know, I think there are still TV stations that do the farm report at like 5 a.m. I think like that's Nebraska and whatnot. But there you get into like and then for giving ideas to any random radio personalities that might be listening to this, local callers. What about local podcasts? And then you point them back to the main station. And I hate this answer, this one that's coming up. This came from a lot of people. Make it more niche. I think that's sort of killing the Tom Kelly Show. I'm too broad. I mean, listen, what was I doing last week? Last week I was talking to a stand-up comedian. Last week we had a stand-up comedian who was talking about healthcare. The week before I had a stand-up comedian talking about her dead boyfriend. Coming up next week on the show, we have the stand-up comedian who was talking about her dead boyfriend in a second part. And then the week after that, because I recorded 2 episodes at the same time with each guest, for the Super Bowl, I have Shanna Christmas and I are just talking news and stuff. But geez, do I really have to be that specific? Because I find it brain deadening, especially for my creativity and the way I write. I mean, God, there was a time where just me being a stand-up comedian was interesting enough. Now it's like, do I have to be the Star Trek comedian? Do I have to be the Long Island comedian? But I was just trying to imagine, what if there was a radio station, kind of like what NPR has become, but like younger and hipper, that had a gimmick for every hour. You know, we're talking dance music from 8 to 9. We're talking pop culture from 9 to 10. You know, and then you could recycle the shows as podcasts. You know, and that's the other thing too is. We'll get to new technology at the end of the list. The other thought is, does radio have to double down on old FM radio? Are people nostalgic for I'm doing that just for the neighbors at this point. But, you know, a few of the comments that came up on Facebook is giveaways that people can win. Live contests that people can actually call into, song requests that are outside of what the streaming service may provide to you through its almighty algorithm. Actually, along the lines, here is the ultimate reason to keep listening to FM radio. I'm going to release this one as a TikTok. You watch, this goes viral. Here's the reason why people today should still listen to FM radio. FM radio is the only form of entertainment that is not stalking you and tracking your every click. That's right. Big Brother knows what podcasts you listen to. Big Brother knows not what TikTok and Instagram reels you like. And quite frankly, Big Brother knows how long you've watched a clip, even if you don't give me the courtesy of hitting like. Nice thing about FM radio, it's not tracking you in your car. Or at least we don't think it is. Yeah, I overperformed that one. Let's see if that works as a clip on social. The traffic. A lot of people put down traffic and weather. Every time I listen to FM radio, do traffic and weather, they're wrong. I'm sorry. I like overall sweeping instructions on traffic from the radio stations. Like, the BQE is closed today. I like the announcements for that. But generally, by the time they report an accident, it happened 3 hours ago. Though I do miss, I actually, a couple of times, have called in traffic updates on my cell phone to the AM news station back in the day. And I do remember when I used to drive into the city, and I would learn this trick from my father, who is now 80. But you would drive from Long Island into New York City. Traffic were on the 1s on 1010 winds, and traffic were on the 8s on 880 AM. Do you need that nowadays with Waze? I find Waze is a little creepy. Waze and Google Maps, they've driven me into some rough neighborhoods and quite frankly have told me to take right turns off bridges. I think that's a new insult. Instead of saying, hey, take a long walk off a short pier, go take a right turn off the bridge. That was me trying to TikTok again, but I sounded a little too Norm Macdonald-y over there. Yeah, let's try this in a softer voice. In the old days, they used to say, hey. Yeah, no, I'm not going to try that again. All right, and embrace the new technology, which is kind of what I'm doing within this. Here's the thing with the almighty algorithm. The almighty algorithms are not pushing content that point people back to your shows and websites. Because it's actually making me sad. Why? Yeah, why? But why would TikTok say, and go follow Tom Kelly on YouTube right now? It shouldn't. That's just silly. So what you got to do is put out great content on these little apps and hope that people care enough about your face and your voice that they will go look for your programming further up the pyramid, further up the tree. And again, I had one clip go virally on Instagram, and thank you, Long Island Wise Guy. If you can, tell Long Island Wise Guy. I mean, seriously, like it used to be in the old days, I used to want to impress The View, Jimmy Fallon, David Letterman. I used to want to impress Stephen Colbert, all these people with TV shows. Frankly, Long Island Wise Guy has gotten me more organic followers than working all summer at Good Morning America. So, there you go. And I'll give you one last one. Oh, embrace the new technology. So like these radio shows, I know radio shows now that are putting out podcasts before their radio show even starts as kind of a tease and a reminder that, hey, they have a radio show on. So you get into the car and suddenly Elvis Duran pops up, or a couple of the other local folks that I have seen. That's a delivery coming in from Fudge. How do I run a broadcast studio out of a one-bedroom apartment? Anyway, but a lot of radio shows are putting it out there. Up 3, 2, 1. A lot of radio shows are actually doing podcasts during the radio show. Now, these are shows that have big staffs, but a couple of smaller shows I listen to are releasing a short podcast at 5:30 in the morning, so that way it drowns out shows like the Tom Kelly Show, and maybe you listen to them instead of my podcast that I put out for free. Oh, and by the way, other complaints about radio on the list where people don't like commercials anymore, which is a valid thing. I think integrated programming is the future. Like, I'm wearing a shirt from Saltwater, Long Island. Go find them on the internet, saltwaterlongisland.com, I think it is. And my niece actually works for them in the Walt Whitman Mall. When you go in there, say, hey, I heard about your store on the Tom Kelly Show podcast, and we'll see if that actually gets them some money. And then I'm going to say the last big thing to anybody who's creating content. If you have listened to Carla Marie and Anthony, they had their own radio show. Then they are on, they had a podcast, and I think now they're on Twitch. Years ago, they gave me credit for telling them a piece of advice that was given to me by a man named Chris Maloney. And I'm dropping all these names to see who's listening and if they give me the shout out back. But Chris Maloney told me years ago, Tom, you're killing your business by just getting Facebook friends. You need everybody's email address. And I recycled that advice a lot of times. I did not practice that advice. By the way, you can sign up for my mailing list at TomKellyShow.com. And here's a real scary part is I think you're going to see, and you're already seeing it, when you would send out an email, 20 years ago, everybody opened it, 100% open rate. Now I think the open rate on my own emails are down to 20% or 33%. I think 33% is the national number. And here's my long-term, and that's only going to drop, because everything's going to spam folders. And frankly, you're going to start seeing our free email service, Google, start saying, you know what? We're going to promote people who pay Google a few extra bucks. So you're going to you're going to end up seeing MailChimp pay Google a few extra bucks to make sure their notes go to the top of the list. And here's my prediction, people, that we are going to regret as content creators. As a content creator, we should get email addresses. And I am going to argue, with algorithms changing and spam mailboxes getting crazier, that we may want to get mailing addresses for our fans and listeners. And I think we're going back to mailers, billboards, and laundry room signs in the next 5 years, because the algorithms they're not making money making you famous anymore. So why not make their own people famous? And I think you're going to see old media and new creators have to go back to some old-fashioned techniques for getting attention again. There you go. So hear me now, believe me later. And I don't know how you do this, because it sure sounds creepy as a stand-up comedian, but hey, can I have your home address? But I got a weird feeling I'm going to wish I had it to send out postcards and Christmas cards to fans. I'm going to wish I had that in about 5 years. So I don't know if this was really funny, but I'm also finding too, and then you got to follow what works. Follow what works. I have found that my numbers go up when I do very specific topics. And yeah, so if you have a friend who works in radio that you think might enjoy this, please share it on your own social media, share it on your own Instagrams and whatnot. And honestly, the one thing we're learning is one person sharing something with one person is how the Tom Kelly virus and all of your individual friends, how they spread like herpes. There you go. Or how they spread like a virus, folks. I think we've covered enough, people. Let's do a little magic mirror, because, again, making people feel connected to the show is what keeps people listening. In the magic mirror, I see Andrew Tavani. I see Andrew Garcia. I see Bridget in New York. I see Natalia. I see Marianne. I see Ryan. I see Debbie Weeks down in Florida. I see Judy in Reno. I see Diane in Canada. And I see you. New podcast guaranteed on Mondays and Wednesdays. I am trying to put little clips out on TikTok and Instagram before 5 o'clock every day, Monday to Friday. So if you don't see me posting, go look. Go look directly at my page if you're feeling crazy. Go hit that magnifying glass and find Tom Kelly Show. And, it sounds crazy, people, but your comments mean a lot. Your direct notes mean a lot. And and you're sharing this stuff means a lot. So however you do it, whether it be to me in this podcast or to your friends in your life, show love where love can be shown. Good night, New York.